Hello, you guys are going to be getting daily videos on this project because I want to really bang things out and just get stuff done. Today, I am committed to hitting a milestone on my project. My goal for the longest time in this project was to hit 60 texts because if I were to hit 60 texts, according to ChatGPT and according to the text that I read, I actually went through and counted how many citations the text that I was reading had for a few of them to see what was the baseline. And they usually had somewhere around 60 and up. So I knew that if I read 60, I'd have a good baseline for myself of okay, now I have enough expertise. And of course, I'm going to read more than that probably by the end of the project, but at least I have the bare minimum. So 60 has been my goal for quite some time. I was reading through really fast for the first 2 months or so. I got to around 50, and since 50 I haven't really been going as fast. I haven't been reading every day because I've shifted to some other things. I started to get inspired for my method section. I wanted to sort of start putting together some of my ideas. I've had a lot of text to switch over to my notes section, my literature review document, and I was getting a bit overwhelmed, so I took some time to transfer my notes to that document so that I wouldn't feel overstimulated. So at the moment, I've been stuck on 55. I just read 2 more yesterday, so I've been stuck in the early 50s of my text for about maybe 2-3 weeks, which is really unusual because I was, like I said before, I was reading at least 1-2 texts every day, so I was getting through at least 5 a week usually. So yeah, we slowed down significantly. But I do have this sort of belief system where I feel like there's milestones in life, and until you hit certain milestones in your life, everything else is going to be stagnant, and then you have to keep the energy moving. I think that's just the way that I've learned to see the world because I have ADHD and I'm not medicated. So for me, it's a little boost of motivation, get to almost the next level. I feel like I'm always trying to get to the next level, and I have this little idea, belief that energy gets stuck, I get stuck energy, and I have to sort of move the stuck energy out of my life to keep things moving. So that does keep me pretty focused because I always have a little chart or something that's showing me what my next level is or what my vision is. I feel like I've had such a journey with getting to 60 texts, and I'm just really excited to close that out and be I have that, and how much higher can I get? How much can I elevate my experience? And yeah, like I said, I do kind of see everything in life as a portal, which is so funny. But yes, I'm curious to see what this portal is going to sort of lead me to. So with all that in mind, let's go. Okay, so we're going to start by just counting up again how many texts I have for each section, just so I can reaffirm to myself that I think I have 55 texts right now. So I'm going to cut to that in 2 seconds. Okay, so I updated the count. It's not that much of a difference. I'm going to pull out my calculator. Oh, I actually have 56, so I only have to read 4. Okay, we're closer than I thought. Yes. Okay, I'm gonna see. So I want to get some of the, basically what I've been saying in some of my other videos is that ChatGPT gave me a list of the things that I was missing. What I've been saying in my other videos is that ChatGPT gave me some of the information that I was missing. I'm gonna rename this because I'm bothered. And those are just easy things to knock out because I don't have to actually read the full document. I just have to get the information that I'm looking for. Just FYI, ChatGPT did actually give me text, names of text that would have that information, but it wasn't accurate. I'll show you what I mean. So, for example, it told me that I can get this neuron count in rats from anatomical papers like this, and it told me this book specifically. I literally downloaded this book. I wasn't finding it anywhere. So then I asked ChatGPT, I was like, what page of the book is it in? Since it told me it was there. And it said, actually, it doesn't have that in any part of the book. Okay, so that's cool. It's not good at texts at all, really. I've only had 1 or 2. Every once in a while it gives me a good text. I don't really ask it for text for that reason. In the beginning I thought maybe it'd be good at that, giving me really focused text on my questions. But to be honest, every time I asked it for a text, I went and I looked at those texts and they weren't really that relevant, or they were just a little bit off base. So I ended up just going off and finding my own text. There's been 1 or 2 that it gave me some interesting things. Specifically, it gave me some things about narrative binding and robots and stuff that I actually need to go back and read. But overall, I really have not gotten good text recommendations from it. That's something that's not that good at. It might be good at giving you something like about like if you want like book recommendations, which first of all, I don't know why you would ask ChatGPT that, because there's about 1 million people giving amazing book recommendations like on the internet already that are real people. So I would never see much of a benefit from that. But I thought maybe because this was a bit more specific, like maybe it'd be a good tool for that. And it's really not. Like you just have to find your own texts, because yeah, like I was like, you literally told me that this specific thing was in the text, and then afterwards you like went back and said it wasn't. So yeah. But we're gonna have to basically find that ourselves. So what we need right now is firing thresholds for what? I guess the sharp wave ripples. We're just gonna try to get the numbers. So here's a good one. I actually recognize this name. I have another text by this author. It's funny how when you start getting into research, you actually start to recognize people, because it's kind of funny. Like I think that people get these really set in stone sort of specialties for a while, you know? So it's like there'll be, you know, there's one author who wrote like pretty much most of my texts on acetylcholine and memory. I guess that was his area of expertise, which is interesting. You know what I actually need to do though? This is why do they this is something that I've learned now, is that there's different types of rats that people use in experiments, on the rat experiments. So these are the two main ones I've seen: Long Evans rats. But I'm basing all of my experiment off of basically I'm basing a lot of my experiment on one experiment that I read on prolonged stress in rats. But actually, the type of rat that experiment used was I don't even know how to say this, Bragdolly rat. So I'm sure the numbers aren't that different, but I still do need to keep things consistent and make sure that all of my numbers are for that rat type, which is really irritating. So I can't actually use this paper. And I just have to hope that somebody has these numbers on this rat type. Let's see if this is the same rat type. The little things you have to think about in science experiments, actually for me, I don't know why, like, I think it's a little bit satisfying to my brain. Like, even though I've mentioned in other videos, I have ADHD, but I also feel like I can be really like particular, or not particular, but it satisfies me. Like stuff like this satisfies me. Like I think I have a little bit of a type A streak to me, even though I would say that I have ADHD and you know, doesn't always pop out that much, but I kind of like the challenge of keeping everything the same. It's kind of fun. Here's the other thing. These numbers are for 11 to 26 day old, these types of rats. I'm looking for adult versions of these rats. I think I need to double check on that really quick, but it's a little bit annoying because you have to really make sure, because maybe a baby rat and an adult rat would be different. I think 11-day old is going to be like a baby rat. What is the age of an adult rat? 2 months. See, so that rat is a little bit too young for what I need. You see, look, it's the same author again, but for a different paper. This guy's like the expert. He's like the hippocampal CA3 to CA1 sharp wave ripple everything expert. Keep running into his name. And it's kind of funny when you see people that are like, you see their name consistently, you can also bet on the fact that they are definitely citing themselves as well, because they are the ones who are literally the experts, so they have done like the most research on it. So it's kind of funny. Like you don't notice that until you start to really read around, and then you're like, oh, this person is. And John O'Keefe, he's literally been cited in like every single one of these papers. I've seen his name just like throughout my whole project as well. I feel like every text either reference him, except for the trauma ones, obviously. I feel like the one that I see in all of my trauma texts is somebody the average person would actually probably know, who is Bessel van der Kolk, who wrote The Body Keeps the Score. It's a very popular book that I've seen even non-psychology people read just to understand themselves. I saw someone reading that on the train, but before he wrote that book, he was just writing a lot of research on trauma. Everything I read about trauma pretty much cites him. And then everybody who talks about sharp wave ripples cites John O'Keefe. And then there's names here and there that I recognize. Acetylcholine is always the same person. So yeah, it's like the same like 5-6 people or something. Hope one day everyone's citing me for the, I don't know, I don't know what is this going to be, acetylcholine hippocampal trauma research. Hopefully arousal and trauma. I feel like I need to like really narrow down like what even is this. I mean, I know what it is, but what's the theme? Does that make sense? Where's my methods section? Okay, so that's text 27 right there. We got the firing thresholds. So CA1 pyramidal cells around this. And then inhibitory interneuron firing thresholds for both of them is around the same, depending on subtype, including PV plus cells, which is what I'm using. So there we go. That's text 27 now. Great. This is starting to look like a real paper, guys. Like I actually have numbers. I'm going to go ahead and delete all of this because it had to do with the other type of rat that I don't need anymore. So bye-bye. Only we're loyal to this rat type. Okay, my little sister called, so I don't know where this left off or if that video is going to save. But basically, I was just reading this one document about the CA3 to CA1 like area, sharp wave ripples, essentially, and then I got all of these numbers that I needed. I got firing thresholds, I got resting potential, and the membrane time constant. I don't even know what those things mean yet. I have to learn, but we have them. So that was all from one text. It really didn't take as many texts as I thought. So the next thing I need to find STDP rules for hippocampus. I don't think I'm going to be able to pull that from the same document, so let's find that. I might ask more questions and learn like what this even means. I've actually read some text already on spike timing dependent plasticity, which is like a learning type. Let's actually look back in my literature review, my notes list. So spiking neural networks are a biologically plausible type of machine learning, and it facilitates practically unsupervised learning. And it's the type of hardware that the neural network that I'm using is going to be utilizing. Oh, I actually remember reading pretty much all of this about presynaptic firing before postsynaptic, and then postsynaptic firing before presynaptic. I read all of this in a text about hippocampal sharp wave ripples, actually. I think I might actually already have this in a paper, so I'm just going to double check on that. I feel like I've had amazing luck throughout this project that somehow I have just had like really good luck with the text that I've read. I feel like I've just come across like the right things, you know? This was a great text. I'm so sorry. I keep spelling this particular researcher's name wrong. Like I keep putting the H in the wrong place. Actually, when I was a kid, I think this was partly a little kid thing and partly a me having moved from abroad thing because I'd moved. This was when I was like maybe 9 and we had just moved back to the US from Peru when I was like 6. So I'd only been in the US 2 years and I would make these little mistakes. Like I said in another video, but like one time they had us basically learning these like what's the word, compound words that are just like that have almost like two words in a word. And they had me do turtleneck and I didn't know what a turtleneck was. So I drew like a turtle and then I made an arrow to point at its neck because I didn't know that that was a sweater. But in the 3rd grade, they basically had us write these like little stories and they basically made them into a book. You know, in elementary school where they have all the kids in the class basically write like a story and then they put it all in a book and then the parents can all kind of buy a copy of the book that has all the kids' stories. They had us write one like that and I wrote this really elaborate one that I don't remember what was happening in it. It had like a ranch, like you know, with animals and I don't even know, but I wrote Johnny, like I named my character Johnny, but I had no idea how to spell Johnny. So I kept putting the H. I spelled it JHONNY the whole time. And then I somehow realized a little bit later that I had gotten it wrong. I was so embarrassed. Actually, I think since I was a kid, I hated getting things wrong and stuff like that. Like I was like when I would get stuff wrong or get facts wrong, I was so embarrassed as a kid. Like I felt so much shame. Like I wrote this thing in class. Like it would actually like eat me up sometimes inside. Like this was the same year. We all had to write a childhood memory. I was literally like 9 years old. But I don't even know if I think I was actually 8. I was 8. But I wrote for my childhood fact that I had when I was like a baby, I had fallen down the stairs. And it turns out that was my little sister. And then I would get really bothered every time because they put all of their memories on the wall. And so when my parents came to the school, they saw mine and they're like, oh, that was my sister, like, you know, your sister. Like they weren't saying it rude or mean. Like they were just telling me like, oh, that's funny. But every time I would see it on the wall, I'd get really, really bothered. Like I really didn't like that. It wasn't that I just didn't like that something was wrong. You know what I mean? That like now a wrong thing is on the wall. I don't know what that's about, but I really hated that kind of stuff when I was like a little kid. Actually, when I was little, really little, like kindergarten, I skipped a grade. When we lived in Peru, I never did kindergarten. I skipped straight to the first grade because I already knew how to read and stuff like that. So my parents like basically put me in like another grade, which turned out fine. But then when I moved back to the US, I was like a 7-year-old and everybody else was like 9. And it wasn't that I was doing bad, but they were just like, they were nervous. They were nervous that I wouldn't make friends. And I guess it's fine when you're really little, but when you get older, it gets like more and more weird for you to be like younger. You don't see that as much, like definitely in the US, I don't think you probably see that as much. Like, I don't remember ever having someone that young in my classes. So they actually made me go back down a grade, which I'm really grateful for. Like, that probably helped me out significantly in terms of like my social life. But so I would have been like a weird little nerd kid. I don't know. But yeah, no, I hated getting stuff wrong when I was like a kid. I feel like I'm a ruminator. This is so random, but just before we go into the next part, but I have never gotten an OCD diagnosis. Like I said in the video, I got it was like a compulsive disorder not otherwise specified or something. I think I just didn't really go into it enough with my my psychiatrist at the time, because I had a big issue at one point where she gave me this incorrect medication that was like this whole messed up situation. It was really messed up. But then I didn't feel like going to find a new psychiatrist, so I just kept her. But then I didn't really tell her that much stuff. Like I think I should have gotten a new psychiatrist and like maybe gone after this. But when I was like a kid, I look back and I'm like, I don't know if this was neurodivergence or a touch of like OCD or what, but I've always been like a massive ruminator, and I had little weird things when I was a kid. If anybody else who actually has a diagnosis relates to this, tell me, and then I'll actually go. I need to try again because I most definitely feel like I have it, but I first of all, I had these little quirks. Like I would always be like hyper fixated on the floor. We had colored tiles and I had to get my foot into the right places as I walked. Again, I don't know if that's a neurodivergent thing, or there's so much overlap that it's really hard to know when it comes to like your little tics and things. It's like there's like a strong overlap there. I've even seen some people say that OCD is a type of neurodivergent. So it's kind of interesting, and like what was stimming or what was it? I'd get these random urges when I was a kid to like I think that was intrusive thoughts and I didn't know what it was. I'd be like in my head, I'd be like I'd get these really strong urges to like put your cheek on the car or like stuff like that. And I'd be like, what? One time I told my dad that and he was like, everyone gets that. Maybe we both have issues. But I was like, so I was just like, oh, okay, that's normal then. But I was like, yeah, back then I'd get these random urges to do weird stuff like that. And I was always like, that's kind of weird, but it was like a really intense urge. Or yeah, stuff like that. Like I was really bothered by myself getting like little mistakes like that wrong, because I think it just bothered me to have like the wrong thing out there. Like even when I get little mistakes wrong to this day, like I don't like it. It really irks me because it's like it's not right. The other one, this one is definitely, I feel like, I don't know if this is like childhood anxiety or what, but I had to say goodbye to if I didn't wave goodbye to my parents, I'd get really upset. Or if I didn't say I love you before I left, because I was like, what if they die today? And then I never, like, in the movies where they like, I didn't say goodbye to my parents. I'm like, what if today they die? Like, I don't know, stuff like that. Tell me if I have OCD. I think that I do, to be honest, but I'm just not gonna I'm like, okay, we're fine. But I definitely had a lot of weird quirks, and that was one of them. I didn't like getting stuff wrong. I don't know, can anybody else relate to that? But I feel like the thing with my little weird quirks is that they come and go. Like I've had different ones at different times, or like different things for different years. I don't know. I'm gonna ask this if it has the STDP rules or whatever, but like I had a big one in high school. When I would get anxious, I would look at like I would this one was awful. It went on for years. If I was really nervous, I would look at the front, like what was going on outside me, and I'd look at the wall and be like let's say there was like a man with an orange hat and he had like tan skin and then like a red outfit. I would look at the wall and over again I'd be like white, red, tan, blue, white, red, tan, blue, over and over again. Come on now. That's gotta be it, right? But it goes away. Like it's not forever. Does anybody else have that? Am I crazy? Or it's like I don't I feel like when you look at OCD and like the media and stuff, like usually I feel like people have this a central compulsion, or it's like the same thing over and over again. Whereas mine have changed. Like I've had different things at different times. Is that anybody else? I don't know why that came up, but that's why I think, like, I don't know if this is related, but that's what I'm saying. Like, I think that sometimes the sciencey stuff where it's like you have to get everything just right. Like you have to find the mouse the same age. Like kind of satisfies my brain. Oh, this is not the right ones because I didn't download. This is very neurodivergent though. When I was a kid, I had ever since I was a kid, I had a really strong sense of justice. That's definitely a neurodivergence thing. I mean, it can be an anybody thing, but people say that neurodivergent people have a strong sense of justice. When I was really little, in that year when I lived in Peru and I skipped a grade and I was in the first grade, I had this friend. She wanted to play queen, and she was like the queen, and everyone else was gonna be her servants. But because I was close friends with her, she was like, "You can be like the princess." But I didn't like that she was. I didn't like that setup. Like I didn't like the power dynamic, and I didn't want her to be like. I didn't want to make everybody else a servant. And so she kept trying to make me the princess, and I was like, I'm just not gonna play. And I walked off, and I literally would just play that by myself the entire time. I would pretend that I was walking around with my cat, my real cat, and like made her my imaginary friend. And then actually, again, the teacher was thinking I had issues all the way back then, but actually the teachers called in my parents and they're like, we think she's got like issues because she's not playing with the other kids. But they knew that that was a situation, like that was happening, so I think they just let me off. But looking back, I do have issues, but I think they were just like thinking that maybe I had a touch of, I don't know, something neurodivergence of some kind, which I did, but that wasn't the reason I wasn't playing with the other kids. But in a sense, it was because of my strong sense of justice. Anyways, you can see that in my personality to this day. Like, I really don't like people having that power dynamic over other people. Like, I feel like that's just a central part of my personality. Like, that's been like my personality since I was a kid. When I was in middle school, I didn't like people being like racist or classist and stuff. It really bothered me like a lot, or people being bullies or mean. I was always the kind of person, again, it's like a definitely like also a bit of like neurodivergent people finding each other thing, but if people were like, if there was somebody that all the kids picked on, like I would befriend them like every single time. I didn't like that. And usually they were really nice people that had like a lot going on too. Or like kids would call them annoying. I didn't like it. So I don't know. I feel like that's just been my vibe since I was a kid. Like it irks me. Like it doesn't sit right with me to see people getting like bullied, or I don't know, or just people being like unfair or rude. It's just like you don't have to act like that. Oftentimes they're projecting. I'm thinking of one situation, I'm not gonna say it, but looking back, I was like, they were projecting so bad onto this kid. Okay, I think this is probably the last time I can even use this chat that I've been using. Again, I'm really asking these questions because I don't know, like I don't have the expertise. My question, going back to the OCD thing versus neurodivergence thing, what is the line? This is something I hope to learn. What is the line between stimming and a compulsion? I guess stimming helps you feel better, but then a compulsion, I don't know. See, that's my question. If somebody knows the answer to that, what is the line between, like, for example, that thing where I would list the colors over and over again? Like, I was doing that because I was anxious, but then it's like, is that me like almost like stimming, or is that like a compulsion? I have no idea. I would love to know that. That one lasted for years, and then all of a sudden I was just like, oh, I'm not doing that anymore. It was so random. Like I literally did that like for years and years. And then I guess one day my brain decided to stop doing that and then give me other updated ones. I got like an update. Okay, they made this way too complicated for me personally yet. I mean, I obviously have to learn all this still. I'm gonna have days where I'm just learning information, but they did give me all the rules here, and yes, it says they do fit and why. But this is the one where they assumed I was like really smart and knew what I was talking about, and it's like, oh, okay, that means I have to like, I don't want them. I'm like so hesitant for them to start speaking to me like I don't know what I'm talking about, because I feel like it's giving me more information, and I want them to assume that I'm at this level, but I also don't really understand. So maybe I'll keep this one as like my smart person one, and then I'll do another one for like actual comprehension. This is my weakest point. This is my weakest point, is this is the neuron actually understanding the mechanisms of like the neural network and the learning. And it's really important because how can I explain in my methods section or even in my discussion section? So yeah, it's been like the last few days, I feel like I've made so much progress, but I've also keep running into like my limitations like really heavily. Like, what does any of this mean? I'm gonna have to do like a crash course. Okay, I mean, I'm gonna move on now from this little like from this checklist because that's technically the last question of like things that they said I'm missing. It's just that I need to understand this better. But let's update my literature review really quick. And then I'm gonna go on to read some other I have a meeting and then we're gonna move on to reading some text about fragmentation because I need to get a more precise definition of that. And for that, I'm thinking that we're going to probably move outside and I'm going to sit in the park because I've been kind of just inside a lot and I've barely been outside like I feel like all summer because I haven't been feeling like that great in terms of stuff. So I don't know, I feel like I should get more sun. Like this is my first summer that I haven't tanned like at all. Like I feel like since I moved to England, I've just been pale all the time. Summertime, like not a tan line in sight. But look at this, man. This thing is like really shaping up. Like there's a lot of stuff and it looks just more real. So that's cool. Now I'm just reflecting on all the weird things I did as a kid that were like I should have been at like a psychiatrist. I feel like I should have many times over my childhood, it's like I should have been in therapy. Not intensive therapy, but like there was something going on there. I don't even know, but that's the cool thing about being an adult is you can be like, yeah, nobody else is doing this and this is really weird. The thing about OCD, unless you're like doing something really obvious to people, like you're washing your hands 30 times a day, that's the thing is that people I'm not going to pretend I'm an expert, okay? But from my own reading for myself, I feel like the main thing, anybody who talks about OCD, the first thing they want to say is washing your hands a bunch of times. But there's so many other forms of it. And I feel like it's one of those things that's really, really hard because it's hard to know, like, first of all, there's like a shame element where it's like you're too scared to talk to people about like what's going on because it's kind of embarrassing. But also it's kind of hard to know when everything like for me, a lot of my stuff was like little patterns and things going on in my head and again, I didn't get an official diagnosis, so I'm not trying to say I have it. But when it comes to just in general compulsive stuff, like it's really, I feel like it's hard for you to know, like, okay, this is like harmful now. And like I need to talk to somebody about it because like it just I feel like it's really easy to hide and just be like in this little shame spiral in your head about like, oh my God, I'm in like a lot of like I'm suffering a lot on the inside, but it's not really coming out on the outside that much. There are like OCD compulsions that are all literally inside. They don't necessarily correlate with some kind of external action. And I think when it came to the compulsive stuff that I dealt with, it was like a lot of that. And it was really hard to know. I mean, to this day, obviously, I feel like it's hard for me to know, like, is that what is that? Which is why I should actually just go to a therapist and talk about it. But I mean, highly recommend if you're in that same situation. But yeah, it's like kind of a confusing, weird thing. I feel like everybody from all of the different types of OCD, like I've read about, I'm really curious later on to just out of curiosity to read, but I feel like there's so many different types of OCD that are just not very represented or people don't like know about that much. Yeah, it's kind of a weirdly big disorder. Like there's like a lot of different manifestations of OCD. Some of them are like physical, some of them are not. And I think it's just not as easy to pinpoint sometimes. I think even from psychiatrists I've spoken to, not for myself, but just who are in the field, they've said that it's can be quite hard to like draw the line and be like, oh, okay, this is OCD now. And just because there's so many different ways it presents itself, but I don't know, everybody go to therapy. That's my takeaway. That's the end of this conversation because I don't know where to take this, but everybody go to therapy challenge. Anyways, let's see. So I should have 27 now. Yep, 57. Okay, we're gonna go get ready for a meeting. I'm gonna download some text on fragmentation onto my iPad, and we're gonna take the rest of this outside. Okay, here we are at the weirdest park ever, which is like a park but in between a bunch of graveyards. It's just the closest park to me. There's a lot of like kids here and stuff playing. It's not weird, but it's just kind of like, okay, this is what's happening now. But I brought a pillow to sit on. I brought my iPad. We have the most British. Don't judge me. My brows aren't done right now, okay? So I don't look my cutest. But we have crisps. Probably the most British crisps in existence, which is Supreme Prawn Cocktail. You guys like my sunglasses? I actually don't have any, like, I need to find a good pair of sunglasses. I've never found a pair of sunglasses that I actually think suits my face. I don't know what's wrong with me, but these aren't that bad, but I don't know where I even got them. They're kind of, like, silly and matrixy, but I don't know. There's too much going on with the sun right now. We are now reading, you can't read it, Reliving Emotions and Fragmentation in the Autobiographical Memories of Veterans Diagnosed with PTSD. Just some cute light reading, you know? Okay, the plot thickens again. The plot is constantly thickening with this paper. But basically, so when actual experts, Bessel van der Kolk, who I mentioned earlier in this video, who was like an expert in trauma, wrote The Body Keeps the Score. He's one example of someone who's reported this, okay? So it's not just a bunch of random people, but basically when they would speak to people who experienced trauma, a lot of them reported that their memories came up fragmented. So basically, maybe in bits and pieces, the storyline wasn't really that put together that well, or it felt like maybe things were out of order, so they couldn't really piece the story together right. But now I'm actually reading the papers on fragmentation because I'm trying to figure out how am I going to basically see this in my RAP model. But when researchers actually went through and essentially tried to test with different like scales to see if this fragmentation like actually came up, they were never able to basically like corroborate that was real. Like they have never actually been able to use a scale and be like, yes, fragmentation is real. The recall doesn't actually really come up that fragmented in like a laboratory setting, so there hasn't really been much like backing in people with PTSD, but many people who study and speak with people who experience trauma report that they experience their memories as fragmented. So what's the disconnect? I find that really interesting because that's how I experienced my own trauma, right? So that's like the experience that's been sort of guiding me through this whole thing. I asked ChatGPT to see if it had like any explanation for me. So I'm reading that many studies don't corroborate the idea that memories come up fragmented in actual studies. It said some people might have different definitions of fragmentation. It said that basically lab studies often require you to recall things in a really calm context. Meanwhile, actual real life clinical situations, you're in a really emotionally loaded setting. Meaning in a lab, basically the hippocampus is online and the person is using all of their verbal and narrative tools. Meanwhile, in an actual clinical situation, like in a moment of actual crisis where maybe a therapist would be called in, the hippocampal context binding, which is actually what I'm trying to sort of study here, is weaker and the amygdala is dominating. So there might be more bits and pieces because of that. It also said that clinical samples, usually there's going to be a lot more people who have chronic, complex trauma, patients with comorbidities, and longer symptom duration. That was my thinking too. I thought maybe people just don't have as severe of a trauma necessary to give you that response. Particularly for me, because I'm interested in structural dissociation, so people with like consistent, like the inescapable stress, like in the rats. They said that, but meanwhile, experimental samples maybe are going to have people with mild trauma or people who are just more likely to go into a study and not feel like they're going to be extremely triggered, you know? And the last thing here, which again, this was my thinking, is that they're very focused on linguistic coherence. All of them are like, well, are they speaking it in like an organized way? And it's like, maybe that doesn't really show much about what's going on in your head the way that you might think that it would. So that's extremely, extremely interesting. And I want to look into that. And like, that's something to think about for my project. I think it'll be cool to really focus in on recall, like I said, rather than that. Actually, now it makes it better that I'm not really focused on humans and I'm not focused on like narrative, if your ability to speak a memory. I'm more interested on what's going on inside, because I think that that's something you can't quite see, but obviously that people with trauma such as myself can feel and can explain, but it's a little bit harder to really see that in action sometimes. I've actually been fascinated by how many controversies and how many issues and how many lacks of knowledge exist in the trauma research. I feel like every other text I run into some new controversy and I'm like, oh my god, why are there so many? That leaves me in such an awkward spot. To be honest, so for example, this one is studying veterans, and a lot of the PTSD work, like I feel like a lot of it is speaking to or researching veterans. So to be honest, I don't know, like as useful as the work with veterans is, I wonder if even there's a distinction there between the trauma of having lived war and now being out of war versus an interpersonal trauma where you're always wondering, is somebody gonna act this way again, or Also, there's so many personal elements to it, like, you know, oh, you did something wrong to get yourself in that situation, or, you know, things like that, that I think are just very different than the trauma of war. Not necessarily that the trauma of war isn't also horrific and, you know, sounds extremely traumatizing. I just think that the traumas like abuse, familial abuse, relationship abuse, and rape, you're so likely to end up in a narrative of like, what have I done wrong, or I did something wrong, and it feels so extremely personal, I think. Whereas I wonder, maybe veterans, if you have insight, like, is it maybe a bit different, or maybe does it feel a little bit less personal to have been traumatized by a war rather than by another human, that you know? Like abuse, childhood sexual abuse, and even rape might be a little bit different because it's so much more likely that it could happen again, or I think that it would pop up in your relationship so much. Like, there's at least, this is how I feel sometimes. It's like, oh, the chance of that happening is could be higher compared to the chance that somebody would go to war again, or that you would experience the trauma of war again, unless you were to basically be, you know, put back in that situation. And with that, we officially have 2 texts left. I am kind of tired of being outside because it got randomly cold, and I'm just not really vibing with this lighting. I feel like I didn't really like how I looked, so to be honest, I think I'm gonna go for a walk and then go home so I stop looking weird. Okay guys, I'm home, and I just finished Reconsolidation and the Dynamic Nature of Memory. We have officially read 59 texts. Okay, last one. Okay, this is kind of fun. Like, it happened again. I just read that text I was talking about by Karim Nader, and now I'm like, oh, okay, I'm going to keep reading about Reconsolidation because I need it. I downloaded a new text called Characterization of Fear Memory Reconsolidation, and who co-authored it? Karim Nader. So there you go. Everybody's just got their little niche area. Oh my gosh, guys! My heart is pounding. I finished 60 texts. What? This is crazy. Can you tell from my face I'm like really tired right now. This is insane. I have been reading and reading and reading for months. This is like, I think this is the most dedicated I've ever been to a thing ever, like just on my own time. I don't even know what to think. I feel like actually I thought that I'd be getting to the end of the 60 and be like, oh, okay, I'm so tired of reading. But actually I already found like 5 more texts to read. So that's cool because I was really worried the whole time and just being like, is this going to be a hassle? When I first saw 60 texts, I was like, no way. How am I going to read that much? Like, that's a lot of reading. But it wasn't as bad as I thought. I feel like this was a great challenge. I mean, challenge plus now I have to continue the work, but I'm now going to upload all of these texts into my literature review and make myself celebratory chicken. I highly recommend doing something like this. This just gave me so much confidence, and I legitimately feel like a new woman. Like, I feel like a changed woman right now. I haven't even processed it all, but I'm just like, I can't believe I read 60 texts for this project and I'm like doing it. And it's like actually happening, like I'm actually working on it. Do you ever have something in your life where you're like, you're so hype and you're so proud of it, but it's like, I don't even want to tell people, not because they're not going to hype it up, but just because like, even if they hype it up, they can't understand how good it feels, or like they just can't understand how crazy it is to you. I'm like, who do I tell? But it's like, if I say it, like, it's just going to seem lame. So I'm just going to, oh my gosh, I'm just going to be hype on my own. Like, okay, we read 60 texts.
We did it! We did it! We did it! We did it! Yay! Logissimos, we did it! We brought the bracelets back for all our friends to wear. We did it! We did it! We did it! Hooray! The skunk, hyena, weasel, and bear. We did it! We did it! We did it! We did it! Now that we know how, let's all say hello! Bonjour! We did it! How Jumbo! We did it!